Hi, my name is Don Dedecker and I'm with Soxbox Software, and I'm demonstrating how to make a pivot table in FoodBank Manager so that we can determine how many services each client has received during the period. Now, the period I'm using is a fiscal year. I actually ran a visit history export in FoodBank Manager on an account. We pulled up, it looks like, roughly 21,397 records. So basically, there's several services that people receive here. They receive anywhere from clothing, food, a homeless care kit, and Thanksgiving food basket. What I reported out or asked in my report for, I asked for a tracking method, the guest ID, first and last name. That's all it started with. Now over here, column E and F, what I've done is I've added two different ways to look at names. So if you want to do last comma first or first last, however you want to do it, or if you just want to go by last and first, there's several ways that you can use this, but it really kind of depends on what way you want your report to look, and we'll look at that in just a second. Now, to get your first last name, basically I just brought two values together. So if you see up here, it might be hard to see. What I did is I just said take D2, which is my last name. You have to do this special command, which is the ampersand, quote, and in the case I did a comma space because that's what goes in the middle between them. And then, of course, end quote and ampersand. It's very important that you have these values in here. And then, of course, I just say what I'm adding. I'm adding column D2 and then DC2 right after. So D2 is the last name, and then my comma space, and then it throws in the first name. So when I go ahead and hit enter on this, you'll see that it just shows Clay Christine. Now, this side here, I did it just the opposite. I did it first name, last name. So it's basically the same. So what you're seeing is C2 here, followed by that just a space. I didn't do the comma space because it's not a last comma first, right? I just want a space first, space last. And then I did the last name. So that way I created them both so you can see both styles. Up to you as to how you want to do it, but I just wanted to give you a feel for what I did. All right, so now that I have this ready, I'm going to go ahead and do my pivot table. The first thing you want to do is go into I usually just go to A2, so it's my first cell off of a header field. You don't have to select it all. It actually works pretty simple. But what I want to do is you want to make sure you're going to go to data, and then you're going to want to make sure your filters go all the way across the top, because that way all of these columns will be included when you tell it to do the pivot table. Now, to do the pivot table itself, you're just going to go now to insert, and then you're going to see a pivot table option. Click that, and then it's going to do a couple things. So what is my range? Well, because I have all my headers have the filters assigned to them, it's going to grab the whole thing all the way from left to right, all the way top to bottom. And I just want to drop my pivot table in a new worksheet. I don't want to put it on top of this because it could be confusing. So I'm just going to do that, and I just have a new worksheet. If you have an existing worksheet, you can do it and tell it. I just find it easier just to drive the new worksheet. Now, this is a pivot table, and it's pretty simple. I'm going to make this bigger now so we can all see it because it's not particularly easy. All right. Now, there's several values here, and this is where we're going to work on. We're not going to really do anything over here. It's all on the right-hand side. So what we're going to do is we want to say, well, what data do we want to see? Well, I do know that my tracking methods need to be my columns across the top. So I'm going to go ahead and choose tracking methods and then drag it in my column section. So now I can see that count of my tracking method, my column labels is clothing, food, homeless care kit, Thanksgiving food basket, and grand total. Now 5 here is a tracking method. The reason why it's showing a number is because we don't delete the visits, but if you've deleted the tracking method, it doesn't have a label assigned. So it's just showing what the database value is. It's 5. But it's irrelevant, so you can ignore it in this case. If you see something like that, you can just delete the column if you'd like to. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I need to see all the rows. So I want to break it into rows. So what I want to do is I can do a couple things. I can say first name, last name, like this. And if I do, and I just drag it down in the rows section. If I do that, you're going to get, the way it works, at least best I can tell, is you'll get like the last name, right? Because that's for first name, and then the last names, right? So maybe that's not what you want. And this is why I was saying, this is why I was talking about doing those, adding the names together, like last first, first last, because it makes it pretty and just puts it in a single row. But it does make it a little more difficult to filter. But if you're going to filter, maybe do last first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click name last first, and I'm going to drop it into my rows. So now you're going to see a name for each row versus it kind of broke down a little differently. Now you can probably find ways to correct what I had earlier. I'm just not an expert. But this is what I would consider doing. So now we have a count of last first. We don't want that, so we're going to get rid of that also. So we can get rid of that part of it. And then so now we're looking at really simple, I think, exactly what we're looking for. So now we can see any particular client and how many times they received any particular service. So if you look at this one, they've been in for clothing 10 times. They've been in for food 14 times. They did have a Thanksgiving food basket during this fiscal period for a total of 25 unique visits. And I believe this is what we're looking for. Feel free to play for this any way you want. You can also just change it real quick. If I go name first last, drop that down in the rows. Now I'm doing it by first last name versus last first name. And then same deal, if I don't want to count on the first last, I can just remove that and get rid of it. And now I lose that column and we're golden. Thank you so much, and y'all have a great day.